The glass-walled conference room felt like a fishbowl. Everyone could see in. Dean, my VP, sat across from me, unable to meet my eyes. His hands shook slightly as he slid a termination letter across the table. "You're let go, Lauren. Effective immediately." The words didn't register at first. Then I saw it. "Terminated for cause" stamped across the top in red ink. My stomach dropped. For cause meant no severance, no unemployment, no references. My career destroyed with 4 words and a stamp. Through the glass, I saw her, Simone, standing in the hallway, arms crossed, smirking. The woman I'd trained 6 months ago as a temporary assistant. The woman now sitting in what should have been my promotion. I realized in that moment, I wasn't just fired, I was erased. My name is Lauren Reed, and I'm 35 years old. I'd spent 7 years building the strategic partnerships department from nothing, from junior analyst to senior strategist. Every client relationship, every successful pitch, every process improvement, I'd built it all, trained every person on my team, created the frameworks we used. I was proud of what I'd accomplished, proud of the department I'd grown. Then Simone was hired as my assistant, and 6 months later, she had my office, my title, my team, my projects. The woman I'd personally trained was now my replacement, and I'd been terminated for cause. The betrayal was so comprehensive, it took my breath away. This wasn't a layoff. This wasn't restructuring. This was deliberate, calculated, personal, and I was about to find out exactly how deep it went. Simone had arrived like a whirlwind, beautiful, charming, completely underqualified. Her resume was impressive on paper, but vague on details. She'd been hired as a temporary project assistant, entry level. But within weeks, she was attending executive meetings, getting FaceTime with leadership, rising impossibly fast. She flirted with Dean openly, laughed too loud at his jokes, touched his arm during conversations. At first, I'd dismissed it as her being friendly, overly friendly maybe, but harmless. Then I noticed the pattern. Every time I had a win, she'd have a private meeting with Dean afterward. Every time I submitted a project, she'd suddenly have input to add. Something didn't add up. The math wasn't mathing. So I started watching more carefully, documenting, taking notes, building a timeline. What I discovered made my blood run cold. Late nights and lavish dinners started appearing on expense reports. I discovered them by accident while reviewing departmental budgets, charges tied to Simone's name, 5-star hotels in cities where we had no clients, wine bars, first-class flights, thousands of dollars in questionable expenses, all approved by Dean without question. I flagged them to finance. "These don't match any client projects. Can someone review?" That was my mistake. That's when everything changed. Within days, the whisper campaign started. Colleagues who'd been friendly suddenly grew distant. Meetings were scheduled without me. My calendar invitations were declined without explanation. Someone was spreading rumors, calling me difficult, intimidating, a troublemaker. The target on my back had been painted, and I'd put it there myself by asking questions, by noticing, by caring about company money. Dean took me to lunch 2 weeks after I'd flagged the expenses, a nice restaurant downtown. He ordered wine, made small talk, then he said something I'd never forget. "Lauren, you've been with us a long time. I'd hate to see you throw that away over petty concerns." His tone was friendly, but his eyes were cold. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I'd smiled politely and agreed, said I understood, that I'd focus on my own work, but inside, alarm bells were screaming. That lunch wasn't a warning, it was a setup. He was creating a paper trail, building a case, documenting my supposed insubordination in a file I'd never seen. A file that would later justify my termination. He'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months, and I'd walked right into his trap. But two could play documentation games. I started my own folder that night. I was still listed as an admin on the company Slack workspace, an oversight from when I'd helped set up the system 2 years earlier. Nobody had revoked my access to private channels, including Dean's direct messages. I shouldn't have looked. Technically, it was a violation, but something told me I needed to see. What I found made me physically sick. Flirty messages between Dean and Simone, inappropriate, sexual, planning meetings in hotel rooms, coordinating their stories about my performance issues. He'd told her I was being managed out, that she'd be taking over my role, that they just needed to build enough documentation to justify firing me for cause. Every message was a piece of evidence. Every conversation was a confession. I took screenshots of everything, hundreds of them, organized by date, saved to 3 different cloud accounts. This was insurance. This was ammunition. This was justice waiting to happen. Then HR mysteriously reorganized. Our longtime HR director announced her sudden retirement. She'd been fair, professional, competent. Her replacement was temporary. And somehow, Simone was appointed acting advisor on hiring decisions. A temp assistant with 6 months of experience was now influencing HR policy. The absurdity would have been funny if it weren't so obviously corrupt. She immediately rewrote my job description, made the requirements impossibly specific, tailored perfectly to her fabricated resume, made herself the only qualified candidate for my role. The fix was in, obvious, blatant, and nobody was questioning it. Nobody except me, and I was being silenced systematically, pushed out, erased. But I was documenting every step, every illegal move, every ethics violation. They were building my case for me. They just didn't know it yet. The meeting where everything crystallized happened on a Tuesday. A major client pitch I'd developed over 3 months. My strategy, my research, my relationships. I'd worked weekends perfecting it. Then my calendar invitation was suddenly canceled. I walked past the conference room and saw them presenting. Dean, Simone, my entire team, using my slides, my pitch, my work. Simone was leading the presentation, gesturing confidently at data I'd compiled. Dean applauded when she finished, praised her innovative thinking. I stood outside the glass walls watching my work being stolen in real time. That's when I understood completely. I wasn't just being pushed out, I was being replaced. Simone was taking my job, my reputation, my accomplishments, everything, and Dean was helping her do it. Because she was sleeping with him, because she'd flirted her way into power, because I'd asked inconvenient questions about expenses. My access to systems was stripped away slowly. First, my calendar invitation stopped including me. Then my project management access was revoked. Then my client database permissions. Then my email distribution lists. Each removal was explained as a system update or security protocol. But the pattern was obvious. They were erasing me from the company digitally before firing me physically, making sure I had no documentation, no evidence, no way to prove what I'd built. But they made one critical mistake. They didn't take my phone. They didn't delete my personal backups. They didn't revoke my Slack admin access. I had screenshots, I had emails forwarded to my personal account, I had client testimonials, I had everything. They thought they were erasing me. They were actually documenting their own crimes. Every deletion, every revocation, every petty act of erasure, all evidence of retaliation, of conspiracy, of fraud. I had one unexpected ally. Monica worked in legal. Quiet, sharp, observant. She stopped me in the elevator one afternoon. "Lauren," she said quietly, not looking at me, "check your employment contract, specifically Section 7, regarding termination procedures." Then the doors opened and she walked out without another word. That night, I pulled out my contract, read Section 7 carefully. There it was, clear as day. Any termination for cause required documented performance issues, mandatory HR mediation, and a formal improvement plan. None of that had happened. No performance reviews, no warnings, no mediation, no improvement plan. They'd just fired me, stamped for cause on the letter, and pushed me out. They'd breached my contract, violated their own termination procedures. And that breach made everything they'd done illegal, actionable, provable. Their own termination letter, it was evidence of wrongful termination. Monica had just handed me the key to destroying them. I made a strategic choice. I told no one my plans, didn't argue, didn't threaten, didn't make a scene. I played dumb, signed the paperwork they put in front of me, packed my office quietly, smiled at Simone as I left, let them think I was defeated, broken, going away quietly like they'd planned. Dean actually patted my shoulder on the way out. "I'm sorry it didn't work out, Lauren. I'll write you a reference if you need." The audacity, the shamelessness. But I just nodded, thanked him, walked to my car. That day, I wasn't walking away. I was circling the block, regrouping, preparing. They'd made the mistake of underestimating me, of thinking I'd go quietly, of believing their power protected them. They were about to learn otherwise. I had evidence, I had time, I had nothing to lose. That made me dangerous, and they had no idea. I filed a wrongful termination complaint with the State Employment Commission the next day, detailed, comprehensive, supported by screenshots, expense reports, and contract violations. Then I did something strategic. I waited, didn't tell anyone, didn't post online, didn't warn them. I needed them comfortable, arrogant, loud. I needed them to keep making mistakes, to keep thinking they'd won, to get sloppy. And they did. Simone gave an interview to an industry publication about rising through the ranks. Dean promoted her officially, made it public, put her name on the website, gave her my team, my office, my projects. They celebrated, threw a party, posted photos online, all while my complaint sat quietly with the Employment Commission, gathering dust, waiting, building momentum, about to explode into their perfect little arrangement with legal consequences they couldn't imagine. Simone spoke at a leadership conference 2 months after my termination. I bought a ticket under a different name and sat in the back row. She gave a polished speech about innovation and strategic thinking, used a case study I'd written, showed slides I'd created, presented data I'd compiled. But she'd forgotten something critical. Every presentation I created had a small digital watermark, my initials, LR, embedded in the metadata, invisible unless you knew where to look. I'd started doing it years ago as a professional habit. Never thought I'd need it as evidence, but there it was. Proof of authorship, timestamp showing creation date, everything. I recorded her entire speech on my phone, downloaded her presentation from the conference website, compared the metadata. Perfect match. She'd stolen my work, used it publicly, claimed it as hers. That was intellectual property theft. That was fraud. That was another nail in their coffin. A recruiter I'd worked with for years called me. "Lauren, I need to ask you something sensitive. I'm running a background check on Simone for a client. Nothing's adding up." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He explained. The university she'd listed on her resume had no record of her. The certifications she claimed didn't exist. The previous employers couldn't verify her employment dates. "Her entire resume appears to be fabricated," he said. "I thought you should know since you hired her." I hadn't hired her. Dean had. But this information was explosive. Simone's credentials were lies. She'd committed resume fraud, been promoted based on false qualifications, was now running a department under false pretenses. The company had liability, legal exposure. Everything they'd built was fraudulent. I thanked the recruiter and asked him to document everything officially, send it to the Employment Commission handling my case. Another piece of evidence, another domino ready to fall. Dean's wife messaged me on LinkedIn, out of nowhere, a short, cryptic message. "Did you know?" 3 words. No context, no follow-up, just those 3 words. I never replied, didn't know how to respond, didn't know what she knew or how she'd found out. But apparently, I wasn't the only one investigating. 2 weeks later, a mutual connection told me Dean's wife had hired a divorce attorney, a particularly aggressive one known for destroying cheating spouses financially. She'd apparently found evidence, text messages maybe, hotel receipts, credit card statements, something. The affair was about to become public, the professional scandal was about to become personal, and Dean was about to lose everything: his job, his marriage, his reputation. All because he'd chosen to protect his mistress, all because he terminated me to hide their affair. Karma was preparing a spectacular entrance. My lawsuit went public 6 months after my termination. The Employment Commission ruled in my favor, forwarding my case to civil court for damages. Local business press picked it up. Former executive alleges wrongful termination, affair cover-up. The article detailed everything: the contract violations, the expense fraud, the relationship between Dean and Simone. Screenshots were included as exhibits, public record now, visible to anyone who searched. The company stock dipped slightly, their LinkedIn page filled with comments. Employees past and present came forward with their own stories. The same day the article published, Dean's wife filed for divorce publicly, made it messy, loud, deliberate, named Simone specifically in the filing. Everything was now public record. Everything they tried to hide was now searchable online forever. Their reputations destroyed with one news cycle and one divorce filing. The board launched an emergency investigation. They'd been completely blindsided, had no idea about the affair, the fraud, the wrongful termination, the expense misuse. Dean had hidden everything from them. Now they had a PR nightmare, legal liability, potential SEC violations if any fraud touched company financials. They hired an outside firm to audit everything, every email, every expense, every decision. The auditors found worse than I documented. Simone had been charging personal expenses. Dean had been approving them. They'd used company funds for their affair. That was embezzlement. That was criminal. Within 2 weeks, Simone went on leave, never came back. Her name disappeared from the website overnight. Dean deleted his LinkedIn profile. Then his email bounced. They'd been fired, terminated for cause, without severance, exactly like they'd done to me. Poetic justice delivered by their own policies. Monica from legal called me. She was laughing, actually laughing. "Lauren, you should see how fast they folded," she said. "The board used your screenshots as part of their internal investigation. Dean tried to deny everything. Then they showed him the messages. His face was priceless." She paused. "They're offering you reinstatement, full back pay, promotion. They want this to go away quietly." I smiled. "Tell them I decline." Monica was surprised. "You're turning down reinstatement?" I explained. "I already have a new offer from their biggest competitor. Better title, better salary, better everything. I don't want to go back." Monica laughed again. "You're brilliant. Let them panic." The company that had fired me now wanted me back, but I was done. I'd moved on, to something better, to somewhere I was valued, to a place that hadn't betrayed me. They could keep their guilt and their settlement offer. The company officially offered me a settlement, substantial, 6 figures, plus my job back, plus promotion, plus public apology. I rejected everything except the money. Signed the settlement agreement with one condition. They had to issue a public statement acknowledging wrongful termination, correcting the record, clearing my name. They agreed. The statement went out company-wide, admitted fault, apologized, said my termination had been unjustified. That statement went on my LinkedIn profile, into my professional portfolio, proof that I'd been right all along, that they'd been wrong, that I'd won. Dean was let go without severance. Simone vanished completely. Rumor was she'd left the state, couldn't find work in the industry. Her fraud was too public, too documented, too searchable. They'd both destroyed their careers protecting each other, while I'd rebuilt mine, stronger than before. But I wasn't done yet. I took a portion of my settlement and donated it to a Women in Leadership Fund, a nonprofit supporting women facing workplace discrimination. I made the donation in Dean's name, publicly. They sent him a thank you letter, put his name on their donor wall, posted about his generous contribution online. He couldn't dispute it without looking petty, couldn't refuse the recognition without explaining where the money came from. His name was now permanently attached to a women's rights organization, on their website, in their annual report, forever. He'd wanted his name on something at that company, legacy, recognition. Now he had it, just not the way he'd planned. The irony was perfect. The revenge was complete. The satisfaction was immense. Justice served cold and documented permanently. I joined my new firm with the title above my previous one, Director of Strategic Partnerships, leading an entire division. My office was glass-walled, like the one where I'd been fired, but now I was at the head of the table, making decisions, leading teams, building programs, on my terms, with people who valued me. My first day, I brought one item from my old office, the termination letter, terminated for cause, still stamped in red. I had it framed, hung it on my wall behind my desk. People asked about it. Why would you frame that? I'd smile. To remember, to remind myself that being terminated wasn't the end, it was the beginning. That letter tried to end my career. Instead, it freed me, gave me evidence, saved my professional life. That's worth remembering. The letter that was supposed to destroy me became the foundation of my victory. 6 months into my new role, I was speaking at an industry conference, same venue where Simone had stolen my presentation. Different panel, different topic. My presentation was about workplace ethics and documentation, about protecting yourself, about knowing your rights. The room was packed. After my speech, dozens of people approached me, mostly women, sharing their own stories, their own wrongful terminations, their own workplace affairs and retaliation. What did you do? They asked. How did you fight back? I told them, document everything. Know your contract. Keep receipts. Stay calm. Stay strategic. Don't fight emotion with emotion. Fight it with evidence. One woman said something that stuck with me. You didn't just win your case, you gave the rest of us a roadmap. That felt better than any revenge, better than any settlement, better than seeing Dean and Simone fail. Helping others protect themselves, that was real impact. My new company thrived. The division I built exceeded every goal: revenue targets, client retention, employee satisfaction, everything. I built a culture based on merit, on documentation, on transparency. No affairs with subordinates, no expense fraud, no retaliation. Just good work, fair treatment, clear communication. People wanted to work for me, recruited to join my team. The division Dean had tried to destroy by firing me now existed somewhere else, better, stronger, more successful. And I'd built it, proven that his termination had been wrong, not just legally, but practically, strategically, financially. I was worth more than he'd ever acknowledged, and now everyone could see it. My success was the ultimate evidence, the best revenge, the clearest vindication. Dean had bet wrong, chosen Simone over me, lost everything as a result, made the worst strategic decision of his career, and I profited from his failure spectacularly. I got an email from Dean a year after everything fell apart. He'd tracked down my new work address somehow. The subject line was, "I'm sorry." I deleted it without reading, didn't need his apology, didn't want his excuses, didn't care about his regrets. That chapter was closed. That book was finished. He'd lost his right to my attention when he'd signed that termination letter, when he'd chosen his mistress over my career, when he tried to erase 7 years of my work. Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. Some actions don't deserve closure. Some people don't deserve access to you anymore. Dean was noise, history, irrelevant. The fact that he felt guilty meant nothing, changed nothing, fixed nothing. I'd moved on completely, built something better without him. His apology was too late and too meaningless. I had no interest in his redemption arc. He could live with what he'd done. That was enough justice. I sat in my office late one evening, city lights glowing below, wine glass in hand, reflecting on everything. The termination, the investigation, the lawsuit, the settlement, the new job, the speaking engagements, the lives I'd helped. It had been 2 years since Dean fired me. 2 years of rebuilding, of fighting, of documenting, of refusing to be erased. Was it worth it? Absolutely.
every moment, every screenshot, every sleepless night, because I'd won, not just legally, but completely. I'd protected my reputation, advanced my career, helped countless others, exposed corruption, held powerful people accountable. That mattered. That meant something. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. Dean and Simone destroyed themselves. I just made sure it was on record, that their fall was documented, that the truth was visible. Let them underestimate you. Let them lie. Let them think they've won. Just make sure when they fall, and they will fall, it's all on record. Evidence lasts. Truth wins. Justice eventually always shows up. Sometimes you just have to be patient enough to let it arrive.